What if everything you knew about Jesus was a lie? What if his message was altered to serve an agenda? And what if secret societies have played a role in hiding the truth for centuries? It sounds like something from a movie, right? But history has repeatedly shown that knowledge is power, and those in power don't just give it away. They hoard it, manipulate it, and rewrite history to maintain control. From the earliest days of humanity, those who challenged authority, whether through new ideas, spiritual awakening, or revolutionary teachings, were silenced. Jesus' message had the power to free minds, yet it was carefully edited, reshaped, and hidden in plain sight. But why? Who had the most to gain? Today, we're peeling back the layers, questioning what we've been told, and uncovering one of the greatest secrets in history. This isn't just about religion, it's about power, control, and the spiritual freedom they never wanted you to find. Let's be real for a moment. Jesus' teachings were radical. They weren't about rules and rituals. They were about personal enlightenment, love, and spiritual awakening. But here's the catch. The moment his message started to shake the foundations of power, it was altered. Powerful entities stepped in, rewriting history to fit their agendas. And this isn't some wild theory. It's a documented pattern seen throughout history. Think about it. Every great thinker, every revolutionary who challenged the status quo was either silenced, erased, or turned into a legend that no longer resembled the original person. Why? Because true freedom, the kind that comes from knowing who you really are and what you're capable of, is dangerous to those who want control. Secret societies, including the Illuminati, have long been linked to preserving or distorting these teachings. The question is, why? Why was his message censored? And most importantly, what happens if we rediscover it? How different would our world look today? Would we still be searching for answers outside of ourselves? Or would we finally realize that the truth has been within us all along? Think about it. If people truly understood that the kingdom of God was within them, would they still bow to religious institutions? Would they need a mediator to connect with the divine? Probably not, and that's exactly why knowledge has been suppressed for centuries. Take a moment to reflect on this. Why were certain gospels banned? Why did councils like Nicaea get to decide which parts of history were acceptable and which ones were erased? If spiritual freedom is a birthright, why has it been conditioned out of us? The truth is that those in power knew that an awakened, self-sufficient society would be impossible to control. That's why they established systems, religion, politics, education, to carefully curate the knowledge we receive. But here's the kicker. This isn't just ancient history. The same game of manipulation continues today through media, entertainment, and technology. Algorithms dictate what we see. History books tell a version of events written by the victors, and questioning the mainstream narrative is often met with censorship. Now, ask yourself, if everything we consume is being filtered through a system designed to maintain control, what happens when we start questioning it? What happens when we seek the truth for ourselves? Jesus wasn't just a religious leader. He was a spiritual revolutionary. His message wasn't about blind faith or rigid doctrine. It was about awakening to a higher consciousness, about realizing that the divine was never something external, but something within. He didn't tell people to fear God. He told them to know God. He preached love over law and inner transformation over outward rituals, and that was dangerous. Why? Because an awakened, enlightened people are not easily controlled. Now, let's talk about what happened next. If Jesus' teachings were truly about liberation, why was so much effort put into reshaping them? Enter the Gospel of Thomas. A long-lost text discovered in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. This gospel presents Jesus not as a distant deity to be worshipped, but as a guide helping humanity unlock divine wisdom within themselves. One of the most powerful verses states, "He who knows himself will know the Father." Think about that for a moment. It's a radical idea. If the divine is already within you, then what do you need institutions, intermediaries, or dogmatic rules for? That's exactly why this gospel, along with others that emphasized self-discovery and direct divine connection, was deliberately left out of the official Bible. The religious and political leaders of the time knew that a society full of spiritually empowered individuals would be nearly impossible to manipulate. So they took control of the narrative, ensuring that people would look outward for salvation rather than inward. But this isn't just an ancient story, it's a pattern that has repeated itself throughout history. From Galileo's scientific discoveries being condemned by the church to modern censorship in the digital age, knowledge that challenges authority is always suppressed. And that begs the question, if certain ideas are so dangerous to those in power, could it be because they contain something truly transformative? By understanding why Jesus' original message was altered, we begin to see the bigger picture. This isn't just about faith. It's about power, control, and the human spirit's fight for truth. What else has been hidden? And if these lost teachings were suddenly revealed, how would it change everything we thought we knew? Stay with us, because we're only scratching the surface. Consider how history has shaped our perception of truth. If knowledge is so powerful that it needs to be controlled, then what does that say about the true potential of human consciousness? Imagine if the teachings of Jesus, unfiltered and unedited, had reached every corner of the world. How different would society be today? Would we still have the same institutions of control? These are questions worth exploring, and they lead us to an even bigger truth, one that has been hidden for far too long. When you remove the teachings that empower individuals, what happens? Control becomes easy. That's the whole point. Think about it. If Jesus' real message was about self-discovery and direct divine connection, but people were told they needed an institution to access God, then those institutions gained absolute power, and that's exactly what happened. For centuries, religious authorities dictated what was truth and what was heresy. They shaped the narrative to ensure people remained dependent on them for salvation, and fear was their weapon. Fear of damnation, fear of questioning, fear of stepping outside the system. But what if that fear was never part of the original message? What if Jesus was never about creating a religion, but instead about showing people their own spiritual power? That changes everything. Now here's where things get even more interesting. If Jesus' teachings had been preserved in their purest form, imagine how different the world might look today. Would we have seen centuries of religious wars? Would entire institutions still hold the kind of power they do? Or would people be more self-reliant, more spiritually aware, and more resistant to manipulation? So, here's the challenge. What happens if we reclaim that lost knowledge? What happens if we stop looking to external authorities for answers and start looking within, just as Jesus originally taught? That's where real change begins, and it's exactly why his message was altered in the first place, because once you wake up to the truth, there's no going back. Are you ready to see beyond the illusion? Imagine if the real message of Jesus had never been censored. Would our entire world be different? Would we be living in a reality where people no longer needed institutions to tell them how to think, how to worship, or what to believe? The truth is, it's up to us to decide what comes next, but to do that, we have to ask the hard questions, dig deeper, and be willing to uncover the knowledge that was hidden from us. Are you ready to break free? Because everything changes once you do. History has always been written by those in power, but that doesn't mean the truth disappears. It just gets buried, waiting for those bold enough to seek it. And that's the real test. Will you accept what has been given to you, or will you take the harder path, the path of discovery? Because at the end of the day, the only thing more powerful than control is knowing the truth for yourself. Secret societies. Those two words alone spark intrigue and mystery. But what if I told you that throughout history, these groups have been more than just whispers in the shadows? Some have worked to preserve knowledge, while others have twisted it for power. The real question is, Which ones were truly working for enlightenment and which were just another layer of control? Let's start with the Gnostics, one of the earliest groups to challenge the mainstream religious narrative. They believed that salvation wasn't found in churches or religious leaders, but in personal enlightenment. They taught that divine knowledge, gnosis, was accessible to all who sought it. But that idea was a direct threat to religious institutions. So what happened? They were branded as heretics, their writings were destroyed, and their followers were hunted down. Convenient, isn't it? Now, fast forward to the Knights Templar. Originally formed as a band of warrior monks protecting Christian pilgrims, they became incredibly wealthy and influential. Some say they uncovered hidden knowledge during their time in Jerusalem. Knowledge so powerful that it made them a threat to the church. Then, in a move that shocked the world, they were suddenly declared heretics, arrested en masse and executed. But was their downfall truly about religious heresy? Or were they silenced because they held secrets that could shake the foundations of power? And then we have the Illuminati, the name that gets thrown around the most when it comes to secret societies. The Bavarian Illuminati was founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt to challenge oppressive religious and political structures. But their enemies painted them as shadowy manipulators, pulling the strings of world events. Were they really trying to awaken humanity, or did they become part of the very system they sought to dismantle? Here's where it gets even more interesting. Hidden knowledge is often stored away, kept from the public, and controlled by those in power. Take the Vatican secret archives, for example. Why would a religious institution need to keep thousands of texts hidden from the world? Some believe these archives contain banned gospels, ancient wisdom, and knowledge that could change the way we understand Jesus, spirituality, and history itself. If that's true, what else? Have we been denied? The real question is, who benefits from this secrecy? If secret societies and religious institutions have spent centuries controlling information, what exactly is so dangerous about the truth? And more importantly, why have they worked so hard to keep it from us? This is just the tip of the iceberg. If history has shown us anything, it's that knowledge is power, and power is never given, it's taken. So, were these groups the protectors of forbidden wisdom, or were they just another cog in the machine of control? Stay with us as we dig even deeper. Imagine if just one of these suppressed texts were revealed today, one that contradicted everything we've been taught. What would happen? Would the world wake up, or would those in power double down on their efforts to control the narrative? These are the questions we must ask if we want to uncover the truth. Let's get real. If secret societies have acted as gatekeepers of forbidden knowledge, the question we should all be asking is, who benefits from keeping the truth locked away? The moment knowledge becomes exclusive, it turns into power, and history has proven time and again that those in power do everything they can to hold on to it. But let's flip that question. What happens when people start gaining access to that hidden knowledge? Think about the printing press. When books, once controlled by religious institutions, became widely available, literacy spread, people questioned authority, and revolutions followed. The same thing happened when the internet arrived. Information that was once tightly controlled became accessible at the click of a button. But here's the thing. Those in power learned from history. Instead of outright banning knowledge, they created a new strategy: flood people with so much information that they wouldn't know what to believe. So, were secret societies really trying to preserve knowledge for humanity? Or were they just another mechanism for control? Some believe groups like the Illuminati originally sought to challenge oppressive institutions, but were later infiltrated and corrupted. Others argue that they were never on the side of the people to begin with. Either way, one thing remains clear. The battle for truth is ongoing. Now, here's where you come in. If knowledge is the ultimate form of power, what happens when individuals take control of their own learning? What happens when people start questioning, digging, and uncovering what's been hidden for centuries? The answer is simple. Control begins to slip. And that's why every time a society starts waking up, the system fights back harder. So ask yourself this: are you willing to challenge the narrative? Are you willing to question everything you've been taught? Because that's where real freedom begins. The choice isn't just in the hands of historians, scholars, or secret groups. It's in yours. But the real question is, what will you do with it? Imagine if every person had access to unfiltered knowledge, no distortions, no agendas. What would happen? Would we see a mass awakening, a shift in how society operates? Or would those in power fight even harder to maintain control? These are the questions that will shape the future. But in the end, it comes down to one thing: the courage to seek the truth, no matter the cost. Let's fast forward to today. The tactics may have changed, but the end goal remains the same: control the narrative and control the masses. It's no longer about burning books or outlawing certain teachings. It's about manipulating the information you have access to and shaping what you believe without you even realizing it. And the scariest part? Most people don't even question it. Think about it. Social media platforms decide what you see, using algorithms that push certain content while burying others. Ever notice how some voices get amplified while others seem to disappear overnight? That's not a coincidence. The same goes for search engines, mainstream media, and even school textbooks. History, science, and religion are all taught from a specific perspective: the perspective of those in power. After all, history is written and rewritten by the victors. The question is, what parts have been left out, and more importantly, why? Let's talk about censorship. We've seen books banned, whistleblowers silenced, and controversial scientific discoveries buried. Even groundbreaking ideas that could change the world, whether in medicine, technology, or history, often get labeled as conspiracy theories before they're even given a chance to be examined. The moment a narrative threatens the established order, it gets attacked. Ask yourself, why would powerful institutions go to such lengths to suppress information if it wasn't important? Take Nikola Tesla, for example. He once claimed that free, unlimited energy was possible. His work could have revolutionized society, but instead, his funding was cut and his research mysteriously vanished. Or look at how ancient civilizations are portrayed. We're told that humans were primitive until modern times, yet there are countless anomalies. Advanced structures, lost knowledge, and ancient texts that suggest otherwise. If these discoveries were fully acknowledged, they could completely rewrite human history. So why aren't they? The bottom line is this: control isn't about stopping the spread of information. It's about managing what you think is true. And in today's digital age where misinformation is everywhere, finding the truth is harder than ever. But here's the key: those who control the past control the future, and those who control information control reality. So if we want to break free, we have to start questioning everything we've been taught. Because the truth is out there, but only for those willing to find it. Imagine if people had access to every piece of lost history, every suppressed document, and every hidden truth. How different would the world look? Would we still live under the same structures of control, or would society finally start thinking for itself? That's the real reason the truth is hidden. Because once people wake up, they can't be controlled. If history has taught us anything, it's this: those in power don't just control people, they control what people think. And the best way to do that? Control the information they receive. Just like religious leaders once dictated sacred knowledge, today's institutions control what we believe about history, science, and even our own spirituality. Look around. The world we live in is flooded with information. We're bombarded with news, social media updates, entertainment, and educational material every second of the day. But here's the twist: just because you have access to information doesn't mean you're getting the truth. In fact, the more information you have, the harder it is to find what's real. Ever heard the saying, hide a tree in the forest? That's exactly what's happening today. The truth isn't locked away. It's buried under a mountain of distractions. Governments, corporations, and media conglomerates decide what's important and what's not. They create narratives, push certain agendas, and silence anyone who dares to challenge them. Remember when history was rewritten to fit the needs of empires? It's still happening, except now it's done through news cycles, algorithm-driven content, and digital censorship. So here's the big question. If we live in the age of information, why is it harder than ever to find the truth? The answer is simple. We've been taught to look in all the wrong places. We rely on external authorities, news outlets, universities, to tell us what's real. But what if they're just another part of the system? What if the real truth isn't something you read, but something you realize? And that brings us to a choice. We can keep accepting the official version of reality, or we can start digging deeper. Because the moment we begin to question, to think critically, and to seek knowledge for ourselves, that's the moment we start breaking free. And freedom? That's something no system wants you to have. Imagine a world where people stop blindly accepting what they're told and start seeking their own truth. A world where individuals think for themselves, challenge authority, and question the narratives they've been given. That world isn't impossible. It's just waiting for enough people to wake up. If you're searching for the truth, stop looking outward, start looking inward. That's where Jesus said the real kingdom exists. And honestly, doesn't that make sense? If the key to enlightenment was always within us, then why would we need institutions, authorities, or middlemen to access it? The truth has been hiding in plain sight, but we've been conditioned to believe that wisdom comes from external sources, whether it's a book, a preacher, or a government. Meditation, studying lost scriptures, and questioning the official narrative aren't just rebellious acts. They are the roadmap to true awakening. But think about how these practices have been treated throughout history. Meditative traditions have been dismissed as New Age nonsense. Lost gospels have been banned, and anyone who dares to challenge the mainstream story is labeled a conspiracy theorist. That's not a coincidence, it's a strategy. Look at the Gospel of Thomas, one of the scriptures deliberately kept out of the Bible. It didn't preach rules, obedience, or fear of damnation. Instead, it taught that divine knowledge is within. It urged people to seek wisdom inside themselves, rather than blindly follow religious institutions, and that's exactly why it was hidden. Now let's talk about intuition. Have you ever had a gut feeling so strong that it turned out to be right? That's not random, it's your inner wisdom speaking. But from an early age, we're taught to ignore it. We're told to listen to authority figures, trust experts, and follow instructions. But what happens when those instructions are designed to keep us from discovering the truth? The fact is, we live in a world designed to distract us. Think about how hard it is to sit in silence, away from technology, away from distractions. Most people can't do it, and that's by design. Because when you're constantly bombarded with noise, you don't have time to think for yourself. You don't have time to reflect. And most importantly, you don't have time to awaken. But here's the thing. Once you start questioning everything, once you start trusting yourself, there's no turning back. And that's why the system fears those who seek the truth. Because when enough people wake up, the illusion collapses. And that changes everything. Imagine if every person in the world stopped looking to authority figures for answers and instead looked within. How different would society be? How many systems built on control would crumble overnight? The truth isn't hidden. It's just been buried under distractions, misinformation, and fear. But once you start searching for it, you'll realize it was always there. When we stop relying on external validation and start trusting our intuition, something incredible happens. We begin to see beyond the illusion. For so long, we've been conditioned to believe that truth comes from outside sources, books, religious leaders, and government institutions. But what if the real truth has always been within us? Think about the moments in your life when you just knew something was right or wrong. No one had to tell you, you felt it. That's your inner wisdom, your intuition. And yet, we're constantly told to suppress it. Why? Because an intuitive person, a person who trusts themselves, is nearly impossible to manipulate. And that's exactly why this knowledge was hidden for so long. Now, imagine a world where people no longer needed permission to think for themselves. A world where individuals trusted their own experiences, their own revelations, instead of blindly accepting what they were told. That's not just a dream, it's a very real possibility. And that's why the system is terrified. The good news? More and more people are waking up. The illusion is cracking. The more we question, the more we seek, the more we reclaim our power. And once you see the truth, there's no going back. So, are you ready to break free? Because everything changes once you do. The journey to truth isn't about following another doctrine or another leader. It's about trusting yourself, questioning everything, and stepping into a reality that was hidden from you for far too long. The choice is yours, but remember, once you wake up, there's no going back. Imagine how different the world would be if people weren't afraid to ask questions, if they weren't afraid to break free from the systems that keep them in place. What if instead of searching for answers outside, we started looking inward? That's where the real transformation begins. That's where we find freedom. Here's the truth. Jesus' message wasn't about fear, control, or religious institutions. It was about spiritual freedom. And that's exactly why it was altered. The world is waking up, rediscovering ancient wisdom and questioning the institutions that have dictated history for centuries. But the battle isn't over. The question now is, will those in power fight back harder to suppress this awakening? Or will humanity finally break free? We've seen this pattern play out before. Every time a movement toward enlightenment gains traction, there's pushback. The Gnostics were wiped out. The Knights Templar were executed. Even in modern times, those who speak out against the system are silenced or discredited. And yet, here we are again, at a turning point where more people than ever are questioning the narratives they've been fed. But let's pause for a second. If this awakening is happening, why does it feel like everything is getting more chaotic? That's part of the design. The more people wake up, the more distractions get thrown our way. Media hysteria, social division, fear-driven politics. These aren't coincidences. They're strategies to keep people locked in confusion, too busy fighting each other to notice the truth unfolding right in front of them. So the real question is, will we let history repeat itself, or will we finally break the cycle? Because this time the information is out there. The lost texts, the hidden wisdom, the ancient teachings. People are finding them, and once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. But make no mistake, those in power will not go quietly, they never do. The fight for truth isn't just a battle of knowledge, it's a battle of perception, and it's happening right now. Let's connect the dots. Jesus' original teachings? Suppressed. Secret societies? Holding lost knowledge. Modern institutions? Still shaping what we believe. But here's the good news. The truth is no longer hidden. It's right here, waiting for those bold enough to seek it. So, what will you do? Will you keep accepting the official story, or will you dig deeper? If history has taught us anything, it's that the truth always finds a way to rise, no matter how hard it's buried. People once thought the earth was flat, that disease came from curses, that certain books were too dangerous to be read. And yet, every time humanity pushed past the barriers of control, a new world opened up. But here's the thing, this journey isn't just about uncovering hidden texts or questioning secret societies. It's about something much bigger. It's about reclaiming the power that was always meant to belong to you. The power to think, to question, to seek truth on your own terms. No intermediaries, no filters. So, the final question isn't just what happened to Jesus' real message. It's, what will you do now that you know? Because knowledge alone doesn't free people. Action does. The choice is yours. And history? It's still being written. So, are you ready to uncover the truth for yourself? The answers have always been out there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those bold enough to seek them. But now that you've seen the bigger picture, the real question is, What will you do with it? Drop a comment below. What do you think has been hidden from humanity? What secrets do you believe have been deliberately erased from history? Let's open up the conversation, and if you're ready for the next step, click on The Secret Disciples of Christ, Unveiling Hidden Knowledge. Every truth we expose brings us closer to real freedom, but only if you're willing to see it. Because here's the thing, the moment you start questioning, the moment you start seeking, everything changes, and once you wake up, there's no turning back. The choice is yours. But remember, the truth waits for no one.